For the sake of review and for a better understanding of what the visual arts comprise, I would like to mention again the basic tenets of art. Art is a language, a form of communication, is the creative expression of an idea, and art is either fine or applied. You will recall from my previous introductory lecture on what art is, I mentioned we derive our ideas about the fine and applied arts from the Greeks. They believed that the fine arts were considered the major arts or high art, and that they were intellectually and spiritually imposing, whereas the applied arts were merely utilitarian and applied to objects of practical usage. We have not strayed very far from their original concepts. I realize that this seems to imply that the fine arts are somehow better or more important than the applied arts. Well, that's not true. Although the fine arts are the basis for all the visual arts, there exists a symbiotic or mutual relationship between the fine and applied arts. The fine artist generally works independently on whatever is important to them. They have as much time as they desire to develop original ideas. The applied artist, on the other hand, usually has to get it done by Friday. The intelligent applied artist will usually find inspiration from the fine arts as well as the world around them. They have a completely different set of concerns and characteristics to deal with than the fine artist, but their concerns are just as challenging as the requirements of the fine arts. The fine artist, on the other hand, should be gratified and affirmed when the applied artist reveals through their work the influence of the fine arts. I will discuss them separately now, show them side by side for easy reference and for the sake of comparison. The fine arts. The purpose of the fine arts is to be seen or viewed in one or more of many types of presentations, not ignored. The applied arts, on the other hand, the purpose of the applied arts is to be appealing and to be sold, and to satisfy the demands of fashion, style, function, materials, and cost. Oh. The fine arts is the basis for all the other arts, and the foundation on which both the fine and applied arts stand. The best works of fine arts are those that influence the work of other fine and applied artists, and therefore the society as a whole. The ultimate achievement or goal of a fine artist is to influence the future. The fine arts is not a job in the traditional sense. The fine arts are more like the fine artists are more like independent entrepreneurs who work for themselves producing a product. Fine arts objects are usually found in museums, the place where 1. Significant, 2. Unusual, and 3. First items of a kind or group are found, and galleries or auction houses like Christie's and Sotheby's, or as an NTF or non-fungible token on the internet where they are exhibited for sale. The fine arts include painting, sculpture, architecture, printmaking, photography, and or still imaging, either analog or digital, film, video, and any other motion and sound media, also either analog or digital. All right, there are 5 characteristics of the fine arts. The quality of these works is judged by how well they achieve the following essentials. First, experiment. Yes, the fine arts are the research and development wing of the visual arts. Fine arts are experiments. Galleries and art exhibitions are to the art world as medical or other scientific journals are to medicine and science. Success or failure, as with other research, is achieved through the test of time. If the practitioners of the applied arts begin to utilize your new art ideas or ways of working, or you greatly influence the work of other fine artists, you have succeeded. Number 2, self-expression. For the most part, fine arts compositions are created and executed by an individual. Exceptions would include a large-scale installation that would require the skills of workers in the trades. By contrast, the applied artist creates a design that is usually executed by an individual or group as a contractor for an architect or auto engineers and assembly line workers for the transportation designer. Number 3, question. Yes, while the applied arts provide answers to problems, the fine arts pose questions. For example, beer commercials often tell young men that they're ugly and need the help of a specific brew to obtain feminine favors. Well, by contrast, in reaction to fine arts, we often sit around the coffee house with our friends and question the meaning or validity of the latest performance piece we recently attended. But simply stated, if a work of art makes you ask a simple question like, "What the hell is that?" or "Is that art?" it's probably a work of fine art. Those are legitimate questions that any artist, art teacher, gallery owner, or manager should be able to respond to intelligently. Number 4, think. The fine arts should encourage intelligent discourse. It should make you think. To the Greeks, yes, remember we got our definition of the fine and applied arts from them too. A work of fine arts derives from intellectually and spiritually imposing ideas. Ideas that make you think about those ideas. The applied arts to the Greeks were merely utilitarian objects that should be well designed and have appealing form, structure, and decoration. Number 5, new. What fine artist doesn't dream of coming up with a completely new idea that will change the definition of art forever? Not that every applied artist doesn't have the same fantasy, but the client wants it done by Friday, which was yesterday. The fine artist usually has the luxury of more time. We refer to this as practice without pressure. It is the preferable method of problem solving and seems to be used more and more in the world of progressive business. Remember, to be creating works of fine art, these 5 characteristics must be your goal. To the extent that they are present and obvious in your work, defines your work as fine art and gives the observer a context for making qualitative judgments about your work. Also, when considering other works of art, never forget the context. I've always said that to truly understand a work of art, you cannot take art out of the context of its times.